name's Holly Hanley. Welcome to my painting studio. Today's gonna be such a fun day because we're painting the Christmas gnome porch sitter. It's got all my favorite things like texture, glitter, lights, dry brushing. What else could you ask for? I'm going to be going through everything step by step, but if you'd like to follow along or you need the pattern to trace onto your board, you can find it on my website. So it's www.hollyhanley.ca, and it's just under Believe Gnome e-packets. And an e-packet is just something that you download and you can print out instantly, so you have it right away, which is really nice. Okay, so the board that we're using today is actually 4 feet tall by 7¼ inches wide, so a really nice size. Okay, and then we've got acrylic paints. The Decor brand is my favorite. They have such vibrant colors. And then we're also going to be using a few of their glitters as well. They have these galaxy glitter paints, which are fabulous. Okay, they make all your projects look amazing. And we've got some modeling paste. We have a palette knife and some brushes. Okay, so the brushes that I'm using are a larger flat brush. Okay, and then we've got a smaller flat brush. We've also got a lunar blender, okay? And a lunar blender has a rounded tip on it like a filbert, except it also has like a bristle hair mixed with a softer hair, which is really nice. It has a nice spring and I use it for all my dry brushing. So, and if you try it, you're gonna love it. Okay, so, and then we've got a couple different rounds. So I usually have a smaller round for some of the little details, and then I've got a larger round for more whimsical strokes, which is quite fun. Okay, I've also got a snowflake stencil. Okay, and those are for our beautiful snowflakes in the background, makes it really nice and easy. I bought some lights from the dollar store. Dollar store has awesome stuff, and it just looks so cute in the background. Okay, and then I've got some palette paper and some paper towel, and of course some water to rinse out your brushes. Okay, so the first step is actually just to seal the wood, and that prevents any moisture from getting into your wood piece, it warping or cracking, and it also helps with paint adhesion. Okay, so for that I'm just using a larger flat brush. Always wet your brush first, tap off the excess water on your paper towel. Okay, and I'm just going to use a little bit of that wood sealer. Okay, and you just give it a coat all over. Okay, when this is dry, you're just going to take a little piece of sandpaper and you're going to sand lightly with the grain. So I'm just going to base coat the background. I always use dark colors for my background just because I'm going to dry brush highlights on top. And I'm going to leave some of that darker gray showing here and there for shadowing and for separation. Okay, so for this, I'm going to be using a larger flat brush. Wet the brush first, tap off all the excess water so it doesn't thin your paint at all. And usually I go with the grain. Okay, again, the lines in the wood, that way you get a lot smoother finish. All right, so once your base coat is really nice and dry, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your pattern, and I traced it onto tracing paper and then I taped it together. Okay, so it's one long pattern, and I just took a little bit of tape and I'm gonna tape it to the top, right here where it's supposed to go. Okay, and then I've got it on tracing paper so I can see exactly where I'm going to put it. And then I'm going to use a little bit of graphite paper, which is much like carbon paper, except you can erase it with a normal pencil eraser, which is nice. And it comes in white and gray. And I'm, of course, using the white, so it shows up really nice. And you're just going to slide this underneath, and you're going to trace all the pattern lines on. Okay, and you can either use a stylus, or you can even just use a pencil. Okay, so either one works. And you're just going to go over top of all the lines. Okay, so I have the pattern all traced on, all the details except for the lettering. Okay, and basically I'm just using my flat brush, so make sure that you wet it first, tap off any excess water, and I'm just using a nice cherry blue and a little bit of white. Okay, so I'm not going to blend the two colors together. I'm just going to take the blue, okay, I'm going to pick up some blue and then some white, and I'm going to blend this in the background. Okay, so can see how I just sort of slap it in, and this just gives it some texture and variation. This is how I do a lot of my backgrounds. I just slap the color in, so which means I just pick up some of the one color and then I'll brush a little bit of the other color in while it's still wet, and just kind of every which way. And the more you brush, the more blended it gets. Okay, colors blend really nicely when they're wet on wet. The same color, you can also paint the little present, okay, or you can change the color of the present if you like. just gonna use my smaller flat brush and I'm gonna base coat in Santa's face. Okay, again, I'm going around the little eyebrows. Okay, and you can go over top of the glasses. Okay, hold your brush on the ferrule, the metal part of the brush, and rest your hand so you have lots of control. Okay, and you can see I just sort of put the paint in with shorter strokes. And then I do one nice long stroke just to clean up so that my base coat is nice and smooth. Okay, like so, and it's gonna need a couple coats. And I always leave a little bit of a space in between the sections. So you can see this is where that gray is gonna come in handy, so it'll help separate and show a little bit of shadow in between those two sections right there. Okay, his mouth is that darker red color. It took a couple coats just to cover. And now I'm taking my brush with that beige and we're going to cover over one more time. Okay, and then while this is still wet, we're just gonna blend in some of the cheek color and that rosy nose color. So right on his nose as well, I'm just gonna paint in some of that base color, like so. And then I'm going to add a little bit of that warm rosy color to my brush. So I just sort of tip into the side. Okay, so I've got a double load. So basically the base color, and then I've tipped in to a little bit of that warm red, which looks so nice, and I'm just blending it in. Okay, so right along the bottom of the nose, like so. Okay, and then I'm also going to add some in the bottom of the cheeks. Okay, and again, the more that you brush, the more blended it gets. Okay, so I've got, and I love rosy colors, so I'm just gonna do lots of this. Okay, so just blend, and then all you do is you blend it up. So I'm just brushing back and forth. And this is just gonna brush this or blend this color in, and it's gonna be nice and soft. Now, if it happens to get a little bit bright, just take a little bit of the base color and add it to your brush, and then that'll help soften. And then I'll come back after it's dry and I'll dry brush on that nice little highlight on top of the nose. Okay, and that tongue is also going to be this color along with that rosy color underneath. I'm gonna let that dry and give it a second coat. Okay, and then just picking up a tiny little bit of that red, nice warm red, and blending it in. Okay, and then we'll add a little highlight after. So looks super cute. I love doing those faces. So I just penciled in the little face here, or you can take your pattern and trace on his little face, whatever works for you. Okay, I'm just gonna pencil it in here. So there's his little eyes, and we've got his glasses. Originally, I had made this guy and he didn't have any eyes, and I just couldn't stand it. So I had to add some little eyes and make him really happy. So, okay, so basically the eyes are just painted in with a black, and again, I just use a 2 round for that. Okay, and I always add just a little touch of water to my paint so that it flows off the brush a little easier. And again, rest your hand as much as you can, and you put in those 2 little sort of crescents first, and then you paint those little eyelashes. Okay, and the eyelashes, you just start at that little line and pull up, like so. And I always make them really nice and full at the bottom, and they get, of course, thinner as you move up. Like so. Okay, and then the little glasses are just a dark gray. So you can just add a little touch of white to your brush and you can paint those in. So nothing too fancy, just painting in two little rectangles here. Rinse your brush out and take just a little bit of white and you can add a little sparkle along the frames. Okay, so right in here, just sort of dash in a little bit of white for highlight. Okay, and then you can also take white and just do those little sparkle dashes on the glasses, the lenses, just to make them look like they have some glass in them. And then I always put a little sort of dash of white under the eyes to make it extra. It's got a little sparkle, and then maybe a little bit on the cheeks like this. And then you can even use your round brush if you want, just to add that really bright sparkle on his nose. Or you can also use the Lunar Blender. Okay, if you want, you just wet it first, tap off the excess water, and I just blend back and forth on my palette to get rid of the excess paint. And I'm just gonna dry brush a little bit of white, actually lots of white. Really make that nice and bright on his nose, even some more on his glasses if you want, like so. Okay, and then I'll use some white to highlight his little tongue here, actually. Okay. Like so, and he's already happy. So for his little hat brim, what I did was I just sort of scumbled in using the Lunar Blender with a little bit of that cream color. And I picked a cream color because I didn't want it to take away from his nice white beard. Okay, so this is just, I did little rounded strokes so it looks pretty fluffy. You can leave a little bit of that showing right here. And then we have this cute little tree that's going to be sitting on top of his hat right here, or he's got like a tree hat. I really wanted a tree in the picture just because I wanted to add some lights to it and I thought that would be so cute. Okay, so you can see I'm just using rounded strokes, making it really nice and fluffy. And it's the same on the bottom as well. Okay, for his little suit jacket, we have some fur trim on the bottom. Like so, and then even while it's still a little bit wet, I'm just going to take a little bit of that brown and I will brush that in so it blends and it gives it a nice sort of warm color. Okay. And again, these all blend together because they're wet on wet. So just picking up that brown while the cream is still wet. Okay, so let those dry and then I'm going to come back and give them another coat. Make them really nice and bright. And of course the beard, you want to leave the graphite lines showing wherever you can. And then when you are finished the project, you can just erase those graphite lines and you'll have a little bit of that dark color showing. So I don't actually paint over the graphite lines as much as I can, like so. So then we have this cute little smile. So you can see how I'm painting around it like this. Okay, and you gotta watch the direction of the sort of how the hair would grow. Okay, so all my strokes are coming down like this and then straight out. And then of course I have those nice big swirls. And then nice big swirls. Okay, just to kind of start those off and then adding around to fill in. It's quite fun. So much fun. Love doing these things. So when you do those swirls, you know, don't think too much. You can use your smaller lunar blender if you like, or you can use the 1/2 inch. This one's the 1/4 inch. Sometimes it's a little easier to do some of those strokes with the smaller. Okay, and then you can just kind of fill it in, and that's just so much fun. I love doing Santa's, those little beards, lots of curls. Okay, and then you're just gonna keep adding. So you add it till it's really nice and bright. Okay, so I went over this beard quite a few times. Okay, but it's really nice when you leave a little bit of the gray showing. You see a lot of shadow. So there's some shadow around his nose. Okay, again, that little smile line. If you do happen to go over the smile line, you can always come back with your round brush with a little bit of gray after and enhance it if you need to. Just doing a little bit of base coating with the 3/4 inch flat. The red and the yellow are transparent colors, so they're gonna need 2 or 3 coats just to make them really nice and vibrant. Again, I use smaller strokes sort of just to fill in, and then a longer stroke to clean up any little brush marks. Just gonna add a little highlight to those red areas with Fiery Red and my Lunar Blender. Okay, again, wet the brush, tap off all the excess water, pick up paint, and then blend back and forth on your palette just to evenly distribute the color, and you can brush this on the surface. And I actually gave this 2 coats just to really make it pop. It just looks so pretty. You can also add a little highlight to the mittens just with some white, little dash. I brush a little highlight just on his boots, just with some white. Just gonna add a nice little highlight on the star. This is just with white. And again, I haven't switched brushes. This is the Lunar Blender, so I'm just dry brushing a nice little highlight on the star just to make it nice and bright. Okay, so just going in, I like to call those little arms right in here. It's gonna be nice and bright, even in the little legs. I'm gonna add a little shine. Okay, and then just gonna accent his little smile. I'm gonna use a bit of white and some black to make a dark gray color, kind of like the background. And I'm just going to take my round brush and loose and airy. So this is just going to have red. I thought it would be cute to add some little polka dots on the present. So I'm just gonna use my Lunar Blender and I'm gonna add some little green spots here and there. So again, this is very loose and whimsical. Don't think too much. Your spots don't have to be perfect. All right, so we've got those little polka dots in there, and I'm gonna add a little bit of a highlight. So you don't have to rinse your brush. I'm just gonna take some of the lighter green and I'm gonna add a little swirl, of course, because I love swirls. my Lunar Blender again to dry brush a highlight on the red stripes. So we're going to use that fiery red, which works awesome on red areas, and we're just going to go across and sort of dry brush. And again, I'm trying to keep this whimsical. There's not a whole bunch of details in here, so kept it nice and simple. So I'm just dry brushing across. Try not to get too much on the white, because then it shows up really bright pink. There's that little knot. So we're just highlighting. Okay, and again, I'm gonna go across this way so that the ribbon looks maybe just a little bit more highlighted in the center. Okay, and then right across like this. Okay, and then we're gonna add a little green so that it pulls it in with the rest of the present. Okay, and I'm just gonna use the round brush with a little bit of green, and again, I always sort of base coat with that shadow color, and then I'll dry brush highlights on top, or just sort of little dashes. Okay, so we've got this nice dark green stripe right in here. Okay, and I'm gonna put lots of this in, so. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of the lighter green, and I'm going to dash a little bit in the center of each little stripe. Okay, just using the round brush again, I hold the brush a little farther down and then rest my hand on my pinky finger just so that I have lots of control. Okay, and you can see my stripes aren't exactly perfect. You can get yours nice and perfect if you like, but I'm just going for the whimsical sort of look. And then one more time, we're just going to use that lighter green right in the center, give it a nice little dash. Okay. So again, I'm just using my Lunar Blender. You're going to take a little bit of white and blend off the excess. So I always blend back and forth on my palette. Make sure there's no water in your brush. And we're going to add a nice little highlight on our little bow. Okay. Okay, so we're going right across the red and the green. Okay, so just sort of pendulum back and forth if you want. And then I do one final little dash like this on my chisel of my brush just to give it a nice little shine. And I know this wouldn't be really rounded, but it looks cute. Okay, so just using the chisel of my brush just to give it that final little shine. It looks cute. Okay, and if you wanted to, you could always just dry brush a little bit of blue. I'm just going to take a little touch of blue and a little bit of white. And I think what I'll do is I'll just dry brush a little bit underneath the knot. For a little bit of shadow. So a couple tips when you do lettering, always hold your brush a little farther down on the ferrule, rest your hand as much as you can, and always pull down with your strokes. Never push up with your brush, okay? And try and hold your brush a little bit more upright. It's not quite like a pencil. Okay, and you're using your whole arm basically to paint those letters. Okay, so you hold your wrist nice and straight. Okay, and again, I'm going to use red just because I kind of want it to pop. Okay, so each letter takes a few strokes. Okay, so I always pull down and then I'll reload. Okay, and see how I pulled down from the top and then I'm going to pull down from the other side. So each letter takes 3 or 4 different strokes to actually complete it. It's not just one stroke all the way around. Okay, and when I pick up paint, I go into my little puddle and then I twist my brush and pull away. That way it brings my hairs to a tip. And gets rid of the excess paint. So this is the galaxy glitter that I'm going to use. It's called Red Nebula and it's amazing. Actually, all the galaxy glitters they're really beautiful and nice big sparkles in there. So it looks really nice on a red base coat. Okay, so I'm just going to use my round brush and I'm going to go over top of that lettering that I've just done to make it look fabulous and sparkly. So I really sort of gob it on. I really fill up my brush. And I'm just going to coat that lettering with the red. Ugh, just looks spectacular. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I love it. This tree is so much fun. You're gonna love it. Okay, so you just use your flat brush and I'm using the darkest green. So I have 3 greens. There's a nice dark one, a medium value, and then we also have a nice light value for highlights. Okay, so when you're doing trees, the only thing that you really need to remember is that you want to pull your strokes in towards that tree trunk. So we can't really see the tree trunk, of course, but imagine that it's there. Okay, so right down the center, and all the strokes pull in there, and then they go straight up and down in the center, and then they're going to change direction so that they're pulling again in towards that tree trunk. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is basically just base coating. Okay, and all of those strokes, I'm picking up lots of paint. There's no water in my brush, and I'm pulling those strokes again in towards that imaginary or hidden tree trunk. Okay, so they're all sort of angled towards that, and then they go straight up and down in the center, and then you're going to change direction and pull in towards the center on this side. Okay, so nothing too fancy. This is just kind of your practice layer. You don't really see it too much, but it's a nice little shadow. Okay, and then again, same thing. Okay, so I've got my lighter green color, and now we're gonna add the highlights in the tree. Okay, so you can use your 3/4 inch flat or your 12 shader, either one will work. And I've got a couple highlight colors. Okay, so I'm gonna take that medium value first. And again, we're gonna do the same thing that we did for the shadow color. Okay, so I'm just starting right at the bottom and I'm sweeping up like this. Okay, so again, watch the direction. It gets straight up and down in the center like that. Okay, in towards that tree trunk, and then it switches direction on the one side, again pulling into that middle. Okay, and you can see I'm leaving some of that shadow color showing like this. And then I'm going to do the next layer. Okay. Now with trees, I always tell everybody, make sure that you make some of the branches a little bit different lengths so it looks a little bit more natural. Okay, so sometimes I start a little lower and then pull up, but you can see how the paint skips and you have that nice little shadow in between each sort of layer of the tree. So right in here. Okay, so make sure that you don't pull up too far, so you can still see that nice dark green. like so. It's so much fun. I love this part. I love all the parts really. Okay, so again, starting at the bottom of your tree and pulling upwards, like so. And then of course in the center, I'm pulling straight up and down pretty much, and then I'm gradually changing direction so all the strokes are pulling in towards that hidden tree trunk. Okay, and then we're gonna do this all again because it was so much fun with the next lilac color. Okay, like so. And you can see there's a few little spots that aren't quite dry from the base coat, but no big deal. Okay, so I love doing trees like this. It's quite fun. Okay, a little more whimsical than your regular tree. Okay, and so I've got that medium value on. I'm not going to rinse my brush. I'm just going to go into the lighter green, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of paint. And again, I'm going to start right at the bottom of the branch. Okay, like so. Adding that nice little green. And if you don't like, like this color, it is pretty bright, you can always mix those two. Okay, so you could mix it a little bit with the medium value just so it's not quite as bright. I'm not too worried because we're going to put in all that snow. Okay, so you can see I brought it up here and there a little higher. Okay, and I'm just going to switch to my smaller flat brush. Okay, those two colors will mix, and then I'm going to grab my round brush just to finish off. Okay, but you can see, don't think too much, just sort of pulling in that highlight. Again, I still have a nice little shadow right underneath each branch for separation. So again, just using my round brush, I added just a little bit of water to my paint. Again, just kind of using my whole arm to add those little strokes. Nice and swirls. And swirls, when I do them, they aren't just one continuous. I actually do like a few different strokes, so they're very whimsical and have lots of brush. I want to let that dry before we put the snow on, just so that it doesn't turn that lighter green color. So our little ornament and all those red areas, they get a highlight, okay? And I usually use my lunar blender to do that. Again, I love the lunar blender for dry brushing, adding any highlights, doing wispy little strokes. And we're using the fiery red. It's a Neon's Deco Art color. And I love this color. It works, it's really hard to find a nice shade of red to highlight a red base. And this one works great. Okay, so it seems really, really bright and fluorescent, but it tones down and it just looks beautiful. Okay, you don't actually see it a whole lot on this ornament because I covered it with glitter, but you can sort of see it a little bit. Okay, so basically I blended off the excess on my palette, and I'm just sweeping over that ornament to give it that nice little highlight. Okay, and I am going to make this really nice and bright, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it again just to really make it pop. You are just going to love doing snowflakes. They are so much fun. I use snowflake stencils, okay, and I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to snowflake stencils. I have so many of them, but I love putting snowflakes on all my winter projects, and I find with a stencil it makes it so easy, and they're just absolutely beautiful. So you can see that they come like this, or there's different varieties, but usually what I do is I cut my stencils just to make it a little easier, so that way if I put on one, it's not going to run into the other. So I cut them into smaller, more easy to use shapes. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to use a little bit of modeling paste, or you can use dimensional effects or whatever you have, and a palette knife. Okay, and it doesn't matter if your palette knife's metal or plastic. Okay, so you're just going to take, this actually comes in white or it comes in clear, so either will work. I've got the white, but I'm also even going to add a little touch more white to it, just so that it's really nice and vibrant. And you can also make different color snowflakes, which is pretty. Okay, so it's, and I have a little tutorial on that as well. Okay, so basically you're taking a little bit of that paste. I don't add too much paint to it because I don't want it to get really thin, otherwise it goes underneath the stencil. Okay, so you're just taking your palette knife, a little bit of paste, And then you can pick one of those gorgeous stencils that you have. Take that stencil, you hold it in place like so, and then you're just gonna knife over top of the stencil carefully. Usually I go from the outside edge in towards the center, like so. And then you're carefully gonna lift that off, and it makes this amazingly beautiful snowflake. I just love it. Okay, I'm gonna do another one here. And you know what, if you make a mistake or some of the paste goes where you don't want it, it comes right off because it's still wet. Okay, there's another one. I've got, and you want to rinse those off right away just because the paste will dry and then it's really hard to get off the stencil after that happens. Okay, there's another little one, and you can add as many as you want. They're all so darn pretty. I'm just gonna add a few more here. Okay, so just while the snowflakes are still nice and wet, or the paste is wet, I'm gonna take some glitter and I'm gonna sprinkle it on. And it just looks amazing. And then you can take just a paper that's folded in half. This. Okay, get rid of the excess and you can reuse the rest of the glitter. We're also gonna add the snow on the tree. And honestly, again, it's so much fun adding texture to pieces. It's my favorite thing. Okay, so again, I'm just using the modeling paste. You can mix in a little bit more white, so it's really nice and vibrant. And you can see how creamy it is. So it's really, really nice to work with. Okay, so I'm just palette knife, and what I'm gonna do is just, when you use your palette knife, you wanna hold it with your fingers on the sides of the handle like this, so that your palette knife is nice and flat to the surface, and we're gonna add all of that snow sitting on the edge of the branch. And it just looks so cool, okay, because it just sort of skips a little bit on the surface. And again, you wanna watch the direction, so I'm pulling my strokes in the center, almost straight up and down. Okay, and then they have a little bit of an angle. They're all angled on the sides, pulling in towards, of course, that hidden tree trunk. Okay, so, and you can see how it just skips along. It looks really like snow. Okay, and you can add as much or as little as you like. I love this stuff, so I'm gonna add lots, and I'm gonna add some on his hat, so it looks like the hat has got snow on it. Okay. Again, it doesn't matter if you have a plastic palette knife or a metal one, they both do the same thing. And if you're enjoying this video, please subscribe or comment in the comment section. I love to hear from you. I'll have more videos coming up soon, but I hope you enjoyed this one. And we're having some fun painting this Santa. I'm gonna add some on his nose here. Of course, to finish off our tree and all of our snow, we're going to take that glitter again. I'm just going to sprinkle on that glitter while the paste is still nice and wet. I love it. Looks so pretty. Okay, and if for some reason you can't use that loose glitter, you can always wait till the paste is dry and just use some of the Galaxy Glitter Ice Comet and paint it over the snow areas. And it's really pretty. Okay, and then we're going to add that little highlight to the ornament. I'm just using a little bit of white, okay, and I'll just dry brush on that little white highlight. A little bit on this side maybe. Okay, and then the little clasp is just with some metallic gold. Okay, so I've got a pretty metallic gold color and my round brush. And I'm just gonna paint that in little dashes. Okay. So, and then a little bit of white paint, and I'm just gonna add a couple little highlights. So there's just a few little white highlights right there, nothing too fancy. Okay, and then I'm going to cover that ornament with red nebula. It's amazing. Okay, and again, if you're having trouble finding the red nebula, you can always use Ice Comet or any glitter that you love. I love this one just because it's the sparkle in it. It's just so pretty. Okay, so I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna give it a couple layers because I really want it to pop. Okay, so this one has like three layers on it. Now four. When the red nebula is dry, you can even dash a little bit of the paste on there. Okay, and then you can take your smaller lunar blender with some white. Okay, so again, when I use the lunar blender, I just blend back and forth, and you can just little swirls. Just be careful if your paste is still kind of wet. I love adding swirls here and there just to kind of create some movement in the background, so you can just dry brushing, nice and whimsical. Don't think too much. So pretty. Like so. Okay, and then use the end of your brush with some white, and you can, or a stylus, and you can add some little dots in the background as well. So some little dots of snow. Okay, so right in here. Or you can spatter with a toothbrush. I like the bigger dots, they look so cute. Once this is all dry, you can actually drill the holes before you paint the tree. So if you wanted to just trace your pattern on and then drill a few holes, you could. I like to live dangerously, so I painted the tree and now I'm just gonna drill in a few holes when it's dry. All right, we're gonna add some finishing touches. We have to put in the light string. Again, you can do this at the beginning when you first trace on your pattern, and you can just drill a few holes. Like I said before, I like to live dangerously, so I'm gonna put the holes in now. But basically, I'm just got like a little hand drill. It works really easy, and I'm just gonna drill a few holes here and there. Well, that was scary, but I did it, yay! I love lights in projects. I think they add so much, and it's so cute, especially at night when you turn it on and you can see the little lights glowing. I hope you guys had fun, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe and comment in the comment section or like it. I have more videos coming soon, and all the patterns that you see on my videos are on my website, so hollyhanley.ca. So thanks for painting with me. I'm Holly Hanley.